Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Miraculous Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Trolsey, and I'm so excited you're here. Freedom in Christ is a gift that's ours for the taking, yet in so many areas of life, it's easy to feel stuck. We all need reminding of how the gospel frees us to live abundantly in every area of life. So whether you're at home or on the go, I hope you'll hang around for an uplifting conversation that will encourage you to walk in the miraculous freedom you've been given. Thanks for tuning in. Today we have my friend Jessica McCraney on the podcast, and I love talking to her in real life, so this was really fun to record. We talk all things dating, having confrontations, when to end things, and what to look for in a life partner. We also get to hear about how she fought for contentment while being single, and her inner thoughts about her first date with her husband. Let's jump in. Hey, Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah.
This has been so fun to just kind of prepare for.
Yeah.
In a way.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you agreed to do it. You're really sweet. Okay, before we get too far into the show, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about you. So you are a wife to Chase, a mom to Noah, and a teacher by trade. You're also one of the most creative people I know, one of the most generous people that I know, and you have a deep love for the Lord and His Word. So we get along great. I am so excited to interview you, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on dating. But before we dive into that, I want to ask, what other than the Lord is giving you life right now? And it can be serious or silly, big or small, but what is giving you life right now?
Well, we just got done with the Christmas season, which is just magical in itself. And this was Noah's first Christmas. So it was just so fun being able to be the person that brings the magic to the home. As a mom, I feel like we bring the magic,
Right.
So I feel like it was just fun being able to do that. And, but I guess I have two things. Number one, enjoying the season of motherhood and just watching Noah grow and learn, and, being able just to be present for all of that has been such a joy. And I know that as well, because Aya Francis is 1 month younger than Noah.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how we really started our bond.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, bonded
but
over our
it has
babies.
just been such a joy watching him grow. And then also we do Explorers Bible Study together.
Yes, you're
and
right.
that has been so life-giving to me in my walk with the Lord. And just I feel like when we're there, I don't have any other responsibilities. It is just me and the Lord.
Yeah. You can really focus.
I can. And I just feel like I can really be still and rest in what He has for me at that moment, and just really take it all in without any other distractions.
Yes.
And so
Receive.
I feel like those have been just my waking up every day, bringing me joy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love Thursdays because of Explorers.
It's my favorite.
It's the best day of the
It
week.
is.
It really is. What are some of your favorite things that Noah's been doing recently?
Well, he just started waving, which is just so fun.
That's so sweet.
On command, not just doing it, but actually when we say, let's say bye, and he waves.
He'll do it.
And he is a snuggler.
Oh, that's so sweet.
He loves to snuggle. I think he's a little physical touch baby. He loves physical touch. And when he is ready to go to sleep, I know he is out. He'll toss that leg up over me. And it is just so funny, but it's just
cute.
It's just I guess a little quirk that he has, but it's so cute. And he'll toss that leg over me, and I know he is gone for the night. But those are probably I guess my sweetest little things that are happening right now.
That is so sweet.
I'm kind of just taking in because I know that they're gonna change.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah.
We really have to savor the time. So he's 10 months old.
Yes, he's a leap year baby.
Oh,
he was born on leap day.
My goodness. Oh, it'll be really close to his birthday when this airs, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. Probably 3 weeks before.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Oh, my goodness. It's coming really fast.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I know. It's so fast.
So fast. Yeah. This year has flown with our little sweet babies.
I know.
But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we really love talking in real life. And so I just thought it'd be really fun to have you on the show. And also, like you mentioned, we kind of bonded over our babies because we were going to the same church and they were born a month apart. And so we got together and had some fun walks in the early days of postpartum.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that we talked about as we were becoming friends was how we met our husbands and what our single years looked like. And since I've known you, your heart for singles has come up again and again. And you and Chase have recently started a Sunday school class for singles at your church. So can you tell us a little bit about the class and maybe what made you want to start it?
So the church did not have a singles class. And there had just been talk of wanting to have one because we didn't have singles, but we didn't have singles because we don't have a class. So like the two kind of go together, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not that there aren't single people out there. There are. They're just
don't have a place.
They don't have a place, you know? And so, and I remember like when I was single, one of the things that I was looking for in joining a church because I had moved in my early 20s was, did they have a good singles program? Because I needed like other singles
Community.
To do life with,
right?
You know,
right.
And so they had kind of been asking for people to pray if like that's something that they would feel led to do, and I've just always, even when I was single, I had a heart for singles. Like I always felt like I wish I could take your burden on me.
Oh yeah.
Like even when I was single, I felt that way.
Wow.
And so I talked to Chase and just told him like, this is my heart. Like I want you to pray about it because I want this to be something that the Lord is calling us both to do and not just like, okay, Jessica's telling me I have to do this, you know? And so, yeah, we've just been praying about it and we've met with like some of the church leaders and we are starting it up this month in January. So it's so exciting. Yeah.
I'm so excited for y'all.
It's kind of like unknown. We're kind of like, what are we doing? But also we do have a plan, you know? And
yeah.
So we're just kind of
seeing what the Lord does. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for telling us about that. I think that's really going to be a great ministry at that church. And I'm just really proud of y'all for stepping out in obedience. And I think it's really cool that you mentioned that God put that on your heart years ago, you know, like even when you were in that season, I feel like maybe that even gave you eyes to like see more and learn more while you were in that so that you could share it later.
Right.
So that's awesome. But okay, I did want to say, if anybody listening thinks it's ironic that we're both married women talking about singleness and dating, we were both there not that long ago and our experiences dating were different. So I thought it'd be interesting for people to hear about this topic from two different perspectives. So I'd love for you to tell everybody how you and Chase met and kind of what your experience dating him was like.
So we met online.
Okay.
In COVID, during COVID, the year 2020.
That part.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
During COVID. And so our first date, we went to eat Mexican.
Oh.
One of the first red flags was he sat on the same side of the bench as me.
He did?
He did. And I tried.
Jeez.
Yeah. I tried to just be like, no, like,
yeah,
you need to sit down. I've never one-sided it with someone.
Right. And especially on a first date.
I didn't even know him, you know?
Oh my gosh. He was excited.
I guess
y'all must have been having some good conversations online.
Well, it was a one-sided conversation because Chase, if you know Chase, you know he does not talk a whole lot. Yeah. I am the talker.
He's a man of few words.
He is. And so when he tried to slide on in, I was like, I can't see you from over here. And so that was kind of
so funny.
Very quirky. But and, you know, but so anyways, but after our first night, our first date, like I said, we met online. I deleted all of my dating apps.
After the first date?
The first date.
Even after he sat on the same side. Wow.
Yeah, it was weird.
You just knew. Did you?
I don't know that I knew in that moment, but I know I was like, it's either him or I need to take a break for a minute. You know, like I think I had been like online dating on and off for a year.
Okay.
And it was a lot of flops.
Oh, I bet.
It was a lot of flops. And I don't know. I just kind of was like, okay, we're going to try it. And I really like the online dating. I never got past like 1 or 2 dates.
Okay. That's how I was in person dating.
Oh, it was
so many first dates.
I hate dating.
50 first dates.
Literally. And I don't know. I just kind of was like, well, we'll either see where it goes with him or like I'm just going to take a little halt on this dating for right now because it was a lot. Dating is mentally draining.
Yes.
It's emotionally draining. Like, I don't miss that part.
That aspect
at all.
of dating.
No.
Yeah. I don't
like
either.
the getting to know somebody.
Right.
Not like dating in a committed relationship, but like
that's
getting to know someone is like the worst.
Yeah.
So,
it can be really hard.
You also asked what my experience dating him was like. And I think there's going to be times where I talk about this a little more, but he was so intentional with me. He lived an hour and a half away from me.
Wow.
But that first week that we met, so we had our first date on a Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. He came to see me every single day that week. He drove an hour and a half.
So that's 3 hours round trip every day.
Every single day when he would get off work.
My goodness.
And I just
After work.
Yes.
Wow.
I know. And I don't know. It just stood out to me because I was like, it was just so intentional. I don't think I've never been pursued in that way.
That's the word I was thinking. Like, that's a very intentional pursuit.
He did. And I was like, wow, like, it kind of shocked me, I guess, that someone would go that far to like be with me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And
for sure.
One of the other things that stuck out to me was we were going to do a bonfire one weekend. That became like one of our regular things. We love to do a bonfire, but this was our first bonfire. And this was like 2 weeks into knowing each other.
Okay.
And I texted Chase. Well, he asked me, what did I want to do that weekend? I said, well, we should have a bonfire. It was like October, and it was going to be like
perfect
chilly.
weather.
Yeah, perfect. And he said, okay. And a few hours later, he sent me a picture where he had chopped up wood with an axe.
What?
With an axe, like a pile of wood.
I don't remember this.
A pile of wood. And I was like, I was thinking just going and getting some sticks in the forest,
or like the prepackaged kind at gas stations. Yeah.
And I remember just being like, oh, he likes me.
To say the least.
Yeah. But like, it was just like, so like, he chopped that wood with an axe. Like like,
my goodness.
And I don't know why I just thought it kind of was like a thing that I just, again, pursuing. I just thought, wow, he like really cares about me.
Yeah.
He cares about what I want.
Right.
And like was willing to go like the extra mile to do for me.
Exactly.
And that just always stood out to me.
Oh my goodness. That is so amazing. I mean, chopping wood, I've actually never tried, but it looks really hard.
It really does.
And very physical.
Yeah.
Like,
and I said, Chase, like we could have just got some sticks. I wouldn't think, but anyways, he was very intentional, I feel like, with his pursuit of me. And I just love that. And he still is. And so I love that about him.
Oh, yeah. That's really important too, that it doesn't stop after you get married, that he's always, pursuing you and just doing really nice things for you, whether it's chopping wood or helping with Noah now or, whatever, whatever it is. Okay. So there may be some people out there listening who are wondering if it's quote unquote okay to date. So some Christian circles promote the idea of courtship over dating. And I think you can correct me if I'm, over speaking or whatever. But I think both of us would say the short answer is that there's nothing in scripture that says don't date. And so this is one of those things that's up to you on how you want to go about it. So as long as you have prayed about it and you're staying prayerful throughout the process, you have a surrendered heart and you're surrounded by people who you can process everything with, then yes, it is okay to date.
I think sometimes we make things harder than they have to be.
Oh,
and
we
just
overcomplicate
scripture. And it's just like, we don't have to.
Right. Yeah.
It's like marriage is serious. It's important to find the right person.
Right.
But like, life, it can throw you curveballs. Like everything's not always going to be perfect. And so like,
Yeah. You can say that again.
I don't know. Just like, I think sometimes we can just overcomplicate dating or courtship or titles and things like that, where it's just, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And we really do have the freedom to do that. I mean, God gave us freedom to pray and to think and to use our minds and to use wisdom, but also like I said, there's nothing in scripture
and
that's like, don't do
discernment.
It. Exactly. Yes.
To do. And, you know, he leads us like, and I will say this, like, even there was a time early on in mine and Chase's relationship where, this is probably another conversation for another day, but I noticed that he drank more than I really was comfortable with. And, I don't drink at all. And that was something that I just noticed early on in our relationship, that he drank a little more excessively. And that was something that, as much as I liked him and as great of a guy as I thought he was, like, I had to sit down and have a conversation that I told him, like, I'm not trying to change you. Like, this is not me, you know, trying to put my wants into you, but I'm letting you know that this is not what I want as like a husband. This is not who I want to like lead my family. And, it's either, and it really wasn't like a, you choose me or choose this.
Not an ultimatum.
It wasn't, but it was just, I told him, like, if you continue this, then like, I'm not gonna, we're not gonna be able to have a part in each other's lives in this way, because I just knew that was my standard.
Wow.
You know, and it was hard, but I knew that like we had to get this settled before we continued on, like, to get deeper into our relationship. I was like, no, we've got to either be on the same page or realize we're not on the same page and like separate ways.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I think that's so wise too, to not just be like, it'll be fine, or we'll get married and see what happens, you know, but
because it will not be fine. You will not get married and it will not be fine. It's going to get worse.
It'll get worse. And,
I think that was the most important thing for me, is that this is what I want in a marriage. Like, over the temporary, like, yes, I really like being with him. This is what I need in a husband and a life partner.
Wow.
And if this is who you are, like, this is not who I can be with, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think you just kind of have to set aside the temporary feelings to be like, is this what I want to deal with for the rest of my life?
Right.
And my answer was no. I do not want to deal with this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And I think that's so good, because some people could be tempted to be like, either, like I said earlier, sweep it under the rug, or go the other way and be like, well, there's this one thing about him and I like everything else, but he's not for me because of this one thing. So I like what you're saying about how you saw a problem, you addressed it with him, he communicated that he wanted to change, you saw evidence that he was changing, you didn't see perfection, I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah,
not at
but
first.
You saw progress.
Right.
And that's what you want in somebody, is somebody that you can sit down and be honest with and be like, hey, you know, this behavior of yours bothers me, and blah, blah, blah. Like, you want to be able to work through things, because as we live, like, there can be other behaviors that come up that you want to have to address. And I guess if you've already done kind of that groundwork in the dating relationship, then it makes it easier to address those things in marriage.
Yeah, definitely.
You've kind of had practice with it.
Definitely.
So, well, that honestly brought up a good question about how the gospel impacts how we date. So we've established that we, you know, are free to date and everything, but how does the gospel impact how and why we date?
This was a hard question to like answer. So I'm going to say this. When we were doing our marriage counseling before we got married, which I highly recommend to any couple that is engaged to do marriage counseling, because you just learn so much about each other. And it's not to tell you that, hey, this person isn't for you. Right. It is just like getting a head start on like problems that you don't even know you might have.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. But it was honestly such a sweet time for me and Chase. Like, it was more confirmation for us. And it was just a sweet time of growing together, I felt like. But We read the book, The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller.
Oh, we have that book. I don't know
love
that
it.
we ever finished it, but we have it.
Well, that was what our marriage counseling was based on.
Okay.
And so I actually have 2 quotes from him that I thought about when I was preparing for this. And so one of them, kind of to answer your question, this was what first came to my mind. He says, to be loved but not known is comforting but superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved is, well, a lot like being loved by God. It is what we need more than anything. It liberates us from pretense, humbles us out of our self-righteousness, and fortifies us for any difficulty that life can throw at us.
Wow. Okay. I have chills. That is my favorite Tim Keller quote. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
yes.
I didn't.
I love that quote. I love it so much.
Yes. And just like you said, just how dating and the gospel go together. Like I told you before, Chase was very intentional and very pursuing with me. And he saw a lot of ugly parts of me. And just like I saw a lot of ugly parts of him. And you just do when you're dating and when you're marriage.
And if you don't, there's a problem.
Yeah. Because I mean, you see the good, bad, and the ugly with each other. And I think from a previous relationship of mine, I didn't want him to see the ugly in me. And
oh, wow.
I felt like once you see these parts of me, you will not want me anymore.
Yeah. It's that fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Right?
Because who wants to be rejected? Especially when I felt for so long that I felt such a deep rejection from being single that I am unlovable, or I'm not pretty enough, or just all these different lies that Satan could throw at me that I will never be able to be loved, and so to know that Chase has seen my good, bad, and ugly. I always say this, that he hadn't realized it yet, but I got the better end of the relationship because he's just, and, but yeah, I just think that being fully known by someone and fully loved not only shows a picture of how God intended marriage, but also how he views us and he sees us who we are and still loves us all the same.
Exactly. Wow. That's so powerful. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking for in a mate, right? Is somebody who will take the time and the intentionality to get to know us fully, and then to be like, I love you anyway. Oh,
yeah. I do.
So good.
I love, his whole book.
I should
highly
finish reading it.
recommend.
Yeah. I'll add that to my pile of books on my nightstand. But okay. Well, this is kind of taking a turn, and we kind of might have talked about this a little bit earlier, but we didn't fully answer it. How do you know when to end things in a relationship?
So, not to linger on this, but I had a pretty bad relationship before Chase, in my college years, and there was a lot of things that I should have ended it over. I think first of all, I didn't have self-respect for myself.
Ooh.
I was overly desperate, honestly, for just a person to live my life with. Yeah. And that I was okay. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was okay with settling for so many things. Because I wanted that so bad. And I gained my identity in that. That if I had somebody that I was loved, if I had somebody that I was wanted, and so if I didn't have my boyfriend at the time, then I wasn't going to be loved. I wasn't going to be wanted. It didn't fulfill these superficial longings in me.
Yeah.
And so I think that my main thing of when we ended that relationship was, I remember the night that we broke up, and the Lord just kind of spoke to me in a way that, Jessica, if you go back, this will continue to happen.
Ooh. Wow.
that this will be your life,
Oh,
you know?
goodness.
And I just thought, I don't want this to be my life.
Wow.
I want somebody who is going to like love me and not hurt me and not say ugly things to me and not yell at me. Like there's just like really basic things, honestly. But seriously, so many girls deal with that.
Yes.
They
just put up with it. They think
put
it's
up
normal.
with someone being so rude and ugly to them and unkind to them.
Yeah.
And, this guy was my first boyfriend. So I kind of was like, maybe this is just what a relationship is.
Yeah.
Like maybe other people just hide it better.
Right.
Or like maybe people deal with it better. I really genuinely thought like,
you thought it was normal.
this is normal.
Wow.
Because I would talk to friends and be like, hey, have y'all ever had like an argument about this? And, oh yeah, the girl that like, and you know what I mean? Like, and I kind of was like, okay, well,
so this
is fine. And it is not fine to argue with your significant other all the time.
No.
And it is not fine for him to yell at you and be mean to you and say ugly things, even in an argument.
Right.
Like me and Chase have been together for 4 years and he has never yelled at me and he has never been derogatory towards me or called me a name. Like even when I wouldn't even say like arguing, but like we do have debates sometimes.
Yeah,
like where
you're going to disagree.
Yeah. But like we get frustrated with each other, but we've never had a drag out. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I just think that it's important to remember that like the behavior, you're getting their best.
Ooh.
When you're dating, you're getting their very best.
Yeah. They're putting their best foot forward.
They're not even showing you all their ugly.
Yeah. Ooh. So you don't want to stick around and see what else is coming.
Right. And so anyways, I think that was kind of from after that relationship ended from there on out, I was like, I need to know that this is the person that I'm going to, whatever behaviors they have, whatever, like I need to know that I can deal with this for my whole life.
Right.
And like, not just like deal with, but be happy and joyful about.
Yes. Yeah. And be thankful that like, oh, this is the man that God has given me. Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, I think you said some really key things there of number one, it's not okay to be yelled at. But I mean, if they don't know, people don't know.
People don't.
So yeah, you're hearing it here.
And if you ever think, is this normal? It's not.
Oh,
it's not.
That's
Because I never, or if you question, like,
especially if it's a recurring thing, I feel like.
If you question, is this something I want to put up with? The answer is no.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not hard to walk away. It is.
Yeah, it is
like,
very hard.
It is. But I will say, like, there has never been a time, even when me and Chase dated, that I thought, do I want to continue this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, even with our hard conversation, I was willing to give it a chance.
Right.
And I saw that there was progress, like towards, and then before we got married, like there was obviously like perfection in that. But there was never a time that I was like, should we continue? Like, should this be, should I go my separate way?
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I just think you hit on some good things too about using discernment of like, God will use the Holy Spirit and the still small voice and whatever it is and your gut, like you can trust your gut.
And I feel like as girls, like we know.
Yeah.
We know when it's not right. And and I really just think that it goes back to being insecure and not and as a Christian, sometimes not trusting that God is going to bring you better.
Yeah.
But,
like this is it. This is as good as it's going to get. So.
Yeah. And so I got to hang on to this.
Yeah. Wow.
And you don't. Like the Lord has so much better for you.
Yes. Amen to that. Yeah. Well, I just think you've grown leaps and bounds, like hearing the story that you told about Chase and like having that hard conversation at the beginning versus what you just told about the other relationship where you were kind of just like, I'll be fine. And so that shows a lot that you really grew a lot and God helped you find your identity in Him is what it sounds like rather than another person. So yay. Well, we've already been thinking back to our single selves, but let's go a little further with that. For me, there were a lot of years that I was really happy just doing my own thing, and I didn't really even care to be married right then. Like, I went to China and lived there for a year, and I really, was fine. I wanted to do my own thing. But eventually I did reach a point where I really did want to be married and start a family. And it was hard to be content in all circumstances during that time. So is it possible to be truly content, to find your contentedness in the Lord, and to want something good like marriage?
I think yes and no.
Okay.
I think maybe for certain people, yes, and for certain people, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I can tell you, I don't think there was ever a time in my life that I could say that I didn't want it.
Oh, okay.
I will tell you this. I even remember in kindergarten, I remember there's a boy in my class, you're meeting everybody at school for the first time. And I thought, I wonder if he'll be my husband.
Oh my gosh.
In kindergarten, I remember thinking that.
That is so cute.
Wow. But, I think be content. I feel like for me personally, I had days of contentment, but as an overall time period of my waiting, I was not a very content waiter.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that, yes, I think people in church had very well-meaning intentions and advice.
Okay.
But it was in ways hurtful because one of the biggest ones that would stand out to me was when you don't want it and it'll come.
I heard that a lot too.
Oh,
and I hated it.
I hated it because, and I'm not trying to downplay someone who cannot have children, but you would never look at someone who can't have children or who's waiting on becoming pregnant to be like, well, when you don't want it, it'll come. How insensitive.
Right. You wouldn't tell them not to want it either.
Right.
And children are a blessing from the Lord.
Seriously, and so is marriage. And I think that is so important to know that coming full circle of maybe me not being as content to now being in marriage, the Lord loves unity of believers. He loves marriage.
Right.
And he delights in marriage.
Yeah. He created it.
He did it. It's one of the biggest blessings that he gives us on this side of earth besides salvation to really show how he loves us and his commitment towards us.
Yeah.
But I do know there were some verses that I would cling to in my discontent.
Okay.
So one of them was Proverbs 3:5 that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And I remember that verse coming to my mind one day as I was driving, and the Lord, I was just kind of praying, and I just said out loud, God, I just don't understand. I just want to understand. If you could help me understand, maybe I could be more content. Or I was striving to be content.
Right.
But it was so hard because it was something that was such a longing of mine. And it was so deep in my heart. And I remember just saying that, God, I just want to understand why.
Yeah.
Why am I having to go through this? Why are you making me wait?
Yeah.
And that verse just kind of came to my mind that you don't have to understand.
Oh,
you don't.
You don't.
You just have to trust in me.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wrote down, as verses would come to my mind during that time, I had a paper that was my go-to verses that when I was in that deep, dark place of feeling this longing that I felt was out of my reach. And I would just go to those verses because I knew I needed truth. Sometimes I needed not only someone to speak truth to me, but I needed to read truth.
Yeah.
And just be in that because that's the only thing that can get you out of that darkness of that longing,
Yeah. I totally agree.
And so I think another verse that I would go to is Isaiah 49:23, and it says, those who wait on the Lord will never be put to shame.
Oh,
and
that's good.
I just had to remind myself that me waiting on the Lord, no matter what that looks like in the end, whether it's a husband or not, I'm not going to be put to shame. The Lord is going to show himself, and he promises to give us the desires of our heart. And I remember praying too that my earthly desire of what I thought I wanted was a husband.
Mm-hmm.
But how sweet is it that God knows us so much deeper, and he knows our needs and wants so much deeper. And I remember praying, like, this is how I think you should fulfill my desire.
Yeah.
But if there's another way, I just want you to fulfill it.
Wow.
Because I just, it was like a hole there. Like, I don't know any other way to explain it besides there's just like this missing piece. And I knew that the only person who could fill it was the Lord. Whether that be giving me a husband or filling it in some other way, I knew he would be the one to fulfill that puzzle piece.
That is so good. That is really good, because you know what some people might be thinking is, I have a hole in my heart and another person's going to fill it. And they can't, because that's going to be exhausting for them. And they're just going to mess up and they're going to let you down. And so another person can't fully satisfy you.
And I knew that if I was the one I would never be able to find the perfect puzzle piece for me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I could try and I could flip it every single way that I wanted to, but I would never be able to, it would never complete me the way that I knew that the Lord could complete me in giving that to me. It was a gift. Like, and I still think that as, you know, our marriage, like, it is an answered prayer. Yeah. It is just such a sweet answered prayer. And like, that is something that I'm always grateful for, that the Lord answered that prayer of mine.
Yeah. It sounds like you came to a place where you really surrendered to what God wanted. Like, because you said that basically, this is what I wanted, but if God was going to fulfill it a different way, then so be it. And I think that's really important for people to hear, is like, you can still have your desires and lay them at God's feet, and like lay them at the feet of Jesus and ask him to do with it what he wants, and then see what he does.
Yeah. And so if you're one of those people who feel like, I'm just not content, like, again, I wouldn't say that I ever got to a place of contentment, but to continue to strive towards that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because it, like I said, it was just a longing I had, like, for the Lord to fulfill. So I think if you are single and you are listening, that it's okay that you're struggling. And like, I don't think that God is like, once you reach a certain point of contentment, here you go.
Right. No, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't.
Because that would be based on our performance.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, and 2 Timothy 2:13 says, if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. And
that is so good.
That even when we are struggling to be content or be like, okay with desires not fulfilled, like, even when we are not like faithful to him or not trusting in him, he's still God, and he's still good.
The same.
And so I just think that that's important to remember, that there's not a certain level of Christianity or that you have to reach for God to be like, now you can.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's so good, because that is one of the ideas that I feel like is really kind of promoted in the church, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah. So, and it's good intentions.
Of course.
It's just wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like, it's just kind of, you know, I don't think that, I think it's just wrong.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And I think that's great that you clung to scripture in that time, and you didn't let yourself, like, you saw that you were having a hard time with being content, and you weren't just like, okay, I'm just going to be discontent and I'm going to be fine with it. Like, you didn't wallow in it. You really worked with God and tried to overcome that. So yeah, I think that's really great advice for anybody out there in a similar position. So this is kind of related, but what do you do in the meantime? So let's say that you really do want to be married, you're struggling with contentment, but you are single, and maybe there are no prospects, and maybe you live in a really small town and you don't know how you're ever going to meet anybody. What do you do in the meantime?
That's a great question, because I felt like that was me.
Okay.
Like, I kind of thought that I would meet my, you know, husband in college, and we would just get married right out of college, and we would just start living life. And I did not. I most definitely did not. And, you know, I graduated and then went into teaching, and then it was kindergarten. So primarily women, like, there were no men.
Right.
And of course we live in a small town. Like, you know, I just kept living my life. I traveled a lot.
Did you?
Oh, it was so fun.
Where'd you go?
Spontaneously to the Grand Canyon.
You did?
Yeah. We
Like,
just at 5:00. Okay. So we live, just as a
reference. Yeah.
we live 26 hours away from
Oh,
the Grand Canyon, I think.
Yeah,
we live in Mississippi.
It's a long way.
At 5:00 in the afternoon, me and a friend just decided to pack a bag and go.
Oh
and
my gosh.
we did that.
And you could do that at that
and
time.
I did that. Yeah, we did that.
That's awesome.
I traveled a lot. I went to Thailand twice. I went on several mission trips, which was great. It was, sometimes, especially when you're wallowing in this, like, it's good to get out of your, whatever you're wallowing
whatever
in.
it is.
Like, it is good to just get out.
Yes.
And just kind of see the world from a different perspective.
And serve other people.
Yes.
And like see the world is bigger than my problems.
Yes.
Me and my problems.
And
Not to discount your problems.
No. And it's okay to still have, to feel the way that you feel. It's just
right.
Sometimes it just puts it in a different perspective.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a short time. You know, sometimes it could be like long lasting, but sometimes it's just like to get you through a little patch or something,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I traveled a lot, and I felt like I got to be really present with some of my married friends that were having children. Like, I was able to go and help them.
Oh,
I was able to just be present for people who needed it, whether they were like elderly or things like that. And so I did try to fill my time with fun things and with friends and with experiences.
That's so great that you just were able to be spontaneous and live your life.
Yeah.
Like you weren't just sitting around waiting for Mr. Right. You were doing things that were fun, but also serving others. So good for you. That's awesome. I've also been to the Grand Canyon, and I've been twice. And the first time I saw it, I cried. Like it was
very overwhelming,
that majestic.
And pictures just
don't.
You could take all the pictures in the world, and it is not.
It doesn't do it justice.
At all.
I love it. I can't wait to go back. I mean, we don't have plans to, but I really want to take Aya Francis there one day.
Oh yeah,
it would be so fun. Okay, so we kind of have mentioned this too, that marriage really is sacred and it's an institution created by God. So it is a good thing, but even something good and beautiful like marriage can become an idol. Sometimes in Christian culture, marriage is placed on a pedestal where God never intended it to be. And it's sometimes portrayed as the end all be all. And people who are married are viewed as to have arrived, quote unquote, while those who aren't married haven't. And that's simply not true. And we know that Jesus himself was single. So how do we as Christians, whether we're single, married, divorced, widowed, how do we celebrate marriage while avoiding idolizing it in our own lives and culturally speaking?
So I definitely felt at times in my singleness that if I was married, I would not have the struggle that I had, or, and to some extent, like I don't have that longing to be a wife anymore, but there are joys and disappointments in every season of life.
Ooh, yes.
As great as my marriage is, and as fun and, as happy as we are, like there's still disappointments and there's still great joys, just like there was great disappointments and great joys in singleness. It's just that way in every season. And I have another Tim Keller quote that is also from The Meaning of Marriage. This was my favorite quote of all the book. But he says this: within the Christian vision of marriage, here's what it means to fall in love. It is to look at another person and get a glimpse of what God is creating and say, I see who God is making you, and it excites me. I want to be a part of that. I want to partner with you and God in the journey that you're taking to his throne. And when we get there, I will look at your magnificence and say, I always knew you could be like this. I got a glimpse of it on earth, but now look at you.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I could cry.
I know, me too.
It's so
Tears.
beautiful.
It is. And, just like being able to, I guess the way that I still look at our marriage is not that I finally found somebody. It is that the Lord heard my deepest request, and he knew my heart, and he answered a prayer for me. Like it is me, honestly, just like resting in the fact that he answered a prayer.
Wow. A desire you had since you were 5 years old.
Yeah, literally. And, I think that when we keep the perspective that our goal is Jesus and to know him and to make him known, like we can only love each other the way that we're supposed to if we're loving Jesus better.
Oh,
that's the only person that in this world that you are to love more than your spouse is Jesus.
Right.
And when you're doing that, like your marriage is better, your relationship is better. And so I think that is kind of how I have avoided idolizing it, is just knowing that like, this is my partner on the journey to the throne.
Oh,
you know, and we like, it is exciting that we get to do this together. But ultimately, like the Lord has a goal for us in this marriage, and that is to tell people about him and however we can. Yeah. And so I think just to keep that as Chase is, like I told you earlier, I feel like he is the better part of me, but he is not my whole like identity. Right. You know, I am Jessica. I'm a wife. I'm a mama. I'm a believer. And there are so many other hats that we wear. Yes. You know,
than just wife. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just wife. And while I love the title of wife, that there's just so much more to life than just being Chase's wife, you know, which is sweet. Yeah. But there's just more. There's just more.
That's so well said. Just to honor your marriage, but also realize that it's not the end all be all. That like our journey to eternity is really what we should be looking forward to. And praise God that you have a wonderful partner. I know. To do that with. I know. Wow. Well, this has been so good and so fun. Thank you so much for doing this. I have one little question to wrap up. So, to close, how will you use your God-given freedom today? And like the first question I asked, you can take this however you want.
I used my God-given freedom this morning to sleep in. Noah goes to Mother's Day out twice a week. And one of the days I'm working, but one of the days is like my off day. And today was my off day. And I used my God-given freedom to sleep in this morning.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. I'm really glad you got to do that. Because rest is important.
It is. It is. And it was so nice.
Oh, I'm so glad.
So, yes. But thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it. And I think we're going to have you back. So, fun. So people are going to have to keep their ears open to your next episode. Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the Miraculous Freedom Podcast, feel free to leave a review and share it with a friend. Our episodes typically release the first Tuesday of each month, but we'll be dropping a bonus episode on Valentine's Day next Friday, so be sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss it. On our next regular episode, we'll get to hear from my mom, Debbie Hare, about the power of your words, and goodness, is she a wealth of wisdom. I think you'll learn a lot from her. Until then, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Miraculous Freedom or on our website, miraculousfreedom.com. I hope you experience the miraculous freedom that Christ has offered you today and that you go tell someone else about it.